Okay, we are in, for you visitors, sorry about this, but we're in the book of Numbers. In fact, not only are we in Numbers, we're in one of the most boring parts of Numbers. Okay? When you read chapter 18, it's blah, 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 blah. But when you open it up and you start to look at some of the underlying principles, this chapter laid the foundation for what we're doing today in some very important areas. Okay, let me remind you of where we've come. Okay, in chapter 14, they rebelled against God by not going into the promised land. God said, back out into the desert, 40 years. And I asked the question there, was that a curse or was it a blessing? And I argued that there's a blessing involved in this. Number one, he gave them plenty of time to either hang themselves or repent. But number two, he gave them plenty of time to teach the next generation, which we'll learn is a good thing because the next generation went into the land. So then, right, and then in chapter 15, God says to them, even though they're going back out into the desert, when the next generation gets to the land, let me remind you of the offerings that you get to offer and say thank you, the Thanksgiving offerings. So then they haven't learned their lesson. So chapter 16, the first part of it, you have Korah rebelling, he and two other guys, and they talk 250 of all the leaders, the key leaders, the chieftains, to rebel against them. Okay? To rebel against Moses. Because they had heard in Exodus just about 13 months earlier, I mean, it's only 13 months since we left Egypt. They had heard that if you obey me, I will make you all kingdom of priests, a holy nation. So they said, well, we're holy too. Who died and left you, God? Why do you get to tell us what to do? That's kind of the summary of Korah's rebellion. And so Moses, being who Moses is, he challenges them to a very deadly challenge. He said, okay, you guys want to be priests? Pick up your censers and bring them before God. Now, the last time that happened, just a few months earlier, Nadab and Abihu, who were priests, they took their censers and offered the wrong incense. Boom, they're dead. It's a very important lesson. Don't ever forget that. Remember Ananias and Sapphira? God has a line in the sand. Stay far away from that line in the sand. Okay, well, that happens to them. So Moses said, take your censers. You want to be priests? And so what did God do? They all died. 250. They all died. What happens next? Oh my gosh. I get it. Chapter 17, verse 12. The Israelites said to Moses, we will die. We're lost. We're all lost. Anyone who even comes near the tabernacle of the Lord will die. We're all going to die. Because they just watched it happen several times. Now, you may remember earlier in Numbers, I talked about the layout of the nation, the tents. You have the tabernacle. Then around it, you have the tents of all the Levites. And then outside of that, you have everybody else's tents. So the Levites begin to provide a protective barrier because God is trying to communicate a principle. Only God is holy. Whether you like it or not, God is God and we are not. Okay? And sometimes I don't like that. And I know sometimes you don't like it. But it is the truth. So the Levites are around the tabernacle. Moses and Aaron, only Aaron's sons became priests, are at the entrance to it. Okay? They're at the entrance. And God is communicating a picture. You just can't walk into God's presence. You can't. How holy do you have to be in God's presence? 100%. How holy are you? I asked my students that, and they're dumbfounded. What are you, 32% holy? 48%? 92%? What are you? How holy are you? That's why under the new covenant, something wonderful happened. God decided to give you a gift. It's called holiness. Okay? Holiness, don't confuse it with moral perfection. Okay, that's something different. Holiness is a different purpose. If I have two water vessels, I only brought one up here. If I have two and I say this one's holy, what changed about it? Did the material change? No, its purpose changes. So when you became a believer, your purpose changed. Okay, under the new covenant. And he's trying to teach them that. Okay, no, you can't just walk into God's presence. There is things that have to happen. And so God decides to give you a gift. He makes you holy. Hebrews 10:10, based on the sacrifice of Jesus, you have been declared holy for eternity. That means your purpose is different. That's what it means. So he's got the layout, and the people haven't figured this out yet. They don't know what to do, and they're continually rebelling. We've seen that, right? It's argument, complaint. How many have we seen in Numbers? I don't know. It's like every other chapter. And so God each time, if you just read it and you don't pay attention, it looks like it's the same thing. It's very monotonous. Complain. But it's really not that way. Because every time they do that, God changes the way he interacts with them. He decides to do it different. And we begin to learn, that's why they said the retreat, navigating the wilderness, it's an adventure. Okay? For the faithful, it's an adventure because we see God interacting differently every step of the way with their complaints. So it's not monotonous. It's showing us God is revealing his character slowly over time. And isn't that what your life is like? When your faith becomes real, don't you start to transform? Isn't that the word we use? I mean, those of you who've been Christians longer than 4 decades, I'm one of those. Yeah, I'm getting old. Nancy did like to tell me that I have 11 grandkids, so I am old. And I look in the mirror, it's like, where'd the gray hair come from? I didn't have any when I married Nancy. She said I didn't have a working television either. I had a black and white TV, and the picture tube didn't work. The babysitters hated me. But as you come to know the Lord, what happens is you start that journey as a brand new Christian. I was 19, okay? And then slowly over time, God begins to reveal himself to you in relationship, doesn't he? And as he reveals himself, you start to become more kind, more loving, more patient. You think about all the wonderful things that begins to happen as you transform and you begin to enjoy life. And what you soon discover is when you're walking faithfully, you have all the freedom in the world. And when you decide to sin, your freedoms all disappear. So I'm sitting across from a man, and he says, I'm sleeping with another woman. These are true stories. You know, it's like, ooh, wow, you got yourself kind of in a jam, don't you? Not many options anymore. Life is real simple for you. Is this woman worth your wife? No. Then we got a problem to undo, don't we? Because when you head down that journey of sin, your freedoms begin to get narrower and narrower. So your maximum freedom comes when you're walking faithfully. But it takes a lifetime to learn that, doesn't it? And so that's what's happening in Numbers, is that the people that are rebellious, that never do believe, okay, they got a sad story. But for the believers in the group, this is an adventure because God is reacting. He's interacting with them differently with each complaint. And sure enough, he changes some fundamental things right here. Because the people are afraid, okay, they set the tabernacle up. They could see it. It's right there. Okay, the only thing between them and the tabernacle is a couple of tents of the Levites. They could see the pillar of fire, the pillar of cloud to keep them cool in the desert. They could see all that. They could see the candles burning 24 hours a day. Well, why can't we go? God said we're going to be holy too. Well, they're not holy. Remember, they're learning how to become priests. They don't know how to do it. So they just rush on up and make stupid mistakes, and they die. So for the faithful, though, they're beginning to notice God is making changes every step of the way as he reveals himself to them. They're very slow. People ask me all the time, well, why doesn't God just move faster? Well, we passed the Civil Rights Amendment in 1964. I remember. We still haven't figured it out. And we want to. Look how slow we move as a nation. Look how slow you move in your lives. How many of you have gotten angry in the last month? Let me see. It's okay, be honest. We're honest here. Okay? You just all admitted to being a church of murderers. Okay? You'd think after all the years you've been Christians, you wouldn't be complaining anymore. You wouldn't be mad or angry or any of that. And yet you still do it, don't you? We move very slowly. It takes a lifetime to change the internal constitution of a person, and even longer to change the constitution of a nation. Okay? So God is doing this in Numbers very slowly. We're far enough into it now that I can say to you that as the faithful, they're on an adventure. They're learning something about God every step of the way. And so is Moses as a leader. He's like, I can only imagine. Wow, what he's thinking. This is why Paul says angels long to look at what's happening to us. Ephesians 3, the mystery is that through us, broken vessels, God reveals his wisdom. To us? No. To all the powers and authorities in the heavenlies. That's the story of Job. Hey, Satan, what do you think about my servant Job? I don't ever want to hear him to say, have you considered my servant Job? I want him to say, have you considered my servant Greg? Yeah, go after Greg, not me. No, he does these things. He allows these things to happen because he can reveal his wisdom through us to all the powers and authorities in the heavenlies who Psalm 8 says, one of these days, we're going to judge. We'll be in charge. We have to learn how. We have to learn how. Okay? So Numbers is that book where over 40 years, he's beginning to reveal his wisdom in greater and greater ways. So he makes a significant change here in the relational engagement. From now on, if a non-Levite violates the sanctity of the tabernacle, who pays the price? The priest. As well as the one who did it. Okay? That's Numbers 18:1. The Lord said to Aaron, you, your sons, and your family are to bear the responsibility for offenses connected with the sanctuary, and you and your sons alone are to bear the responsibility for offenses connected to the priesthood. Okay? What he's doing is he's beginning to protect all the people and be patient. No longer are we going to have just mass slaughter. It doesn't work that way anymore. From now on, the priests are the ones that will bear the responsibility. So he's shifting the responsibility, so the Levites are now incentivized to stop violators. No. Don't do this. Don't do this. Look in chapter 18, verse 2. He goes on from there. Bring your fellow Levites from your ancestral tribe to join you and assist you when you and your sons minister before the tent of the covenant law. That's the tabernacle. They are to be responsible to you and are to perform all the duties of the tent. They must not go near the furnishings of the sanctuary nor the altar, otherwise both they and you will die. He just changed the rules of engagement. So now the tabernacle, which soon becomes the temple many years later, the temple becomes an attraction. You can see it from your tent. You can see it. And now he's putting in place the rules for what does it look like to go after what you desire. That's why we say the gospel in our world should be attractive. Who wants to be at a church where it's like this? You know? I don't. I had that feel of that many years ago. No. I'm not this kind of pastor. I'm this kind of pastor. Come closer. Come on, come closer to the Lord. Okay? Come closer. Taste and see, Psalm says, that the Lord is good. He's really good. He's really good. I've told you stories over the years. I was just at a conference in March, and I was the last speaker, the caboose. And so the whole arena is emptying out, and I'm putting my stuff away, and this young lady says, Dr. Howard? And I turn and I go, yes. And she said, I just wanted to say thank you. And I said, well, you're welcome. What are you thanking me for? And she said, a year ago, I was going to commit suicide. My parents had disowned me. My boyfriend was cheating on me. I lost my job. I didn't know Jesus. And I said, enough is enough. I've had enough. So I was just getting ready to commit suicide, and my best friend calls me and said, I just got off work early. My boss let me go early. I'm on my way over. Let's grab a cup of coffee. She didn't know anything about suicide. And so she's crying now. She's telling me the story. She said, I climbed into the car, and I heard your voice on the radio. She was listening to the podcast that I'm on where you were talking about how good God is. And she said, and I just started to cry. Could it be that there's a God out there who really is good and loves me? And she said, I've become a Christian. I listen to your sermons now, and I just want to say thank you. Now we're both crying. So she gives me a big hug. Okay, I'm not trying to brag. I'm trying to illustrate how the Lord wants us to make the gospel attractive. You're far more effective when you're a loving congregation. We talked about that last week, than when you're a critical congregation. And that's what he's working with this. This is an adventure for the faithful as we walk through Numbers. So he's just changed it, okay? God will no longer unleash his fury against the whole nation. Isn't that the story of Noah and the rainbow? No longer will I destroy the world. They're like kindergartners, and he's teaching them. He's laying the foundation for who we are today, okay? So the rest of Numbers 18 is actually quite boring. Can't redeem a firstborn of a cow, sheep, or a goat, but they're holy. Splash their blood against the altar, blah, blah. Their meat is to be yours, blah, blah, blah. The Lord said to Aaron, you will have no inheritance in land, blah, blah, blah. I give to the Israelites the tithes of all of Israel, blah, blah, blah. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Levites, say to them, when you receive tithes from the Israelites, blah, blah, blah. Say to the Israelites when you present them. It's just, you read it and you're going, okay? But I want you to think about what happened, okay? This is where he begins to introduce the concept of a tithe. Okay? The Levites who have been given, who are the priests, who have been given the responsibility to protect the sanctity, the holiness of God, remember what a priest does. Don't ever forget. A priest brings God to the people. A priest brings people into God's presence. In the Old Testament, that's through the sacrifices. In the New Testament, it's still through the sacrifices, just not animals. Hebrews 13, let us together offer up the sacrifice of praise with thanksgiving, the fruit of lips that bear joy or thanks to his name. Okay, that's Hebrews 13. Romans 12. After 11 chapters of explanation, therefore, based on God's mercy, let us offer our bodies as a sacrifice, a living sacrifice to the world. Okay? So he's teaching them how to be priests. So in response for them carrying this added burden of helping people to really learn how to approach the temple, they get rewarded for this. Okay? I'm going to read verses 21 to 24, and then I'll explain it, so just don't fall asleep yet. Verse 21, I give to the Israelites all the tithes in Israel as their inheritance. Remember, all the other people got land as the inheritance, but not the Levites. I give it to them as their inheritance in return for the work they do while serving at the tent of meeting. Remember, their life is now on the line. So he's now rewarding them for this heavy burden. From now on, the Israelites must not go near the tent of meeting, or they will bear the consequences of their sin and will die. I'm sorry, the Israelites must not go near. They'll bear the consequences of their sin and will die. It is the Levites who are to do the work at the tent of meeting and bear the responsibility for any offenses they commit against it. This is a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. They will receive no inheritance among the Israelites, that's the Levites. Instead, I give to the Levites as their inheritance the tithes that the Israelites present as an offering to the Lord. That is why I said concerning them, they'll have no inheritance. Among the Israelites, they don't get land, they get something far different. Okay? They get something far better. This is the foundation for us today. Okay? Let me describe the tithes. They had 3 tithes that the Israelites had to give. Okay? Now, first of all, I've heard many pastors say, tithe is 10%, you should give 10%. We're going to see in a minute, that's actually not what the New Testament says. Okay? And a tithe that's 10% is very different than the way we think about it. It's 10% on everything they own, not how much money they make. So if you have a house worth $500,000, got to give $50,000 every year. How many of you do that? My hands are down. That's what I thought. And you got to do 3 of those. Okay, but look at what the tithes are for. This is where it becomes critical. The first tithe goes to the Levites to take care of them. Okay? They get 10% of all the tithes that come in to take care of them. They don't have land and crops and animals like everybody else. The second tithe, which is fascinating, goes to the sanctuary. You know why? For celebration. God meant for us to be dancing and laughing. If you read the whole chapter through, it was for celebration. What would happen if we took, and we tried to do that here. Why do we take our tithes? We do trunk or treat. We have the Christmas festival last year. We had, several hundred people here. Why? So that we have fun. Last year we did some cookouts and barbecues. We're going on a retreat. By the way, we lowered the price of the retreat so that our young families could afford it. Our young families struggle in this county. We lowered it down to a price they could afford. What does that mean? We're underwater. So, for those of you that have capacity, think about donating more to help out with the retreat. That's up to you. We do that on purpose because what happens is we build unity. If you have capacity, you get to watch young families come. And if you're a young family, you get to say, somebody helped me. Somebody helped. It's the same feeling I get when I buy an airplane ticket to Cambodia. I can't afford to do all that ministry overseas, right? I have people that take care of it. It's the same feeling I get when I walk into our house across the parking lot. You guys paid for it. Thank you for that. It's a real gift. And so this second tithe is to be used for celebration. We should laugh. We should thank the Lord. The third tithe, which occurs every 3 years, is to be shared between the Levites and the disadvantaged people. That's why when I considered this church 12 and a half years ago, the first thing I did was look at the financial statements. I want to see how the money's being used. And 20% or more of the general fund goes outside the church. The food bank gives thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars of food. 4,000 meals. Our benevolence fund gives thousands of dollars to poor people. You support me to go teach Cambodian pastors. We support missionaries. I look to say 20%. Okay, that's the minimum we should be at. And we work to maintain that every year. You know what the average in America is for churches? It's less than 1% now. Goes outside. This is a generous church. It's a generous church. So the first tithe was to take care of the Levites because they don't have an inheritance. They don't have a way of earning money. Okay? The second tithe was for a celebratory gift to the sanctuary for them to enjoy the festivals and remember all that God has done. And the third tithe was to be shared between the Levites and disadvantaged, marginalized, poor people. Because Leviticus says there should be no poor people among you. You should take care of the poor. So, Christians are the ones that protect God's holiness. That's really what this is all about. Acts 5, Ananias and Sapphira, they didn't have to lie. It was their property. And Peter said, you own the property. You didn't have to lie. Why did you lie to the Holy Spirit and tell us you gave 100% to the church? We didn't even ask for that because of arrogance. That's why. Okay? 1 Corinthians 11, we celebrate this. I quote it every Sunday, right? When we do communion. You know what it says after that? Therefore, and he's talking to Christians, don't drink and eat in an unworthy manner. You know what the result is in 1 Corinthians 11? Because of this, many of you are sick and many of you have died. You violate that boundary with whatever you do, there's a price to pay. And it's very vivid right here in Numbers, but it becomes vivid in the New Testament as well. So that's why we often give you time. Just if you have a problem with somebody here, stop. And just for the time being, come to them and say, can we celebrate together in peace? Don't drink it in an unworthy manner. Okay? So these things haven't changed. We are priests to one another. We help each other out. We help each other stay in God's presence in a holy way. And we help our friends come to God's presence. right? That's why, I know that there's several out there that you don't know what you believe. You may not believe it all, but you come because you're intrigued. And that's why I say, come, taste and see that the Lord is good. How would you know unless you ever taste? You can't know unless you taste. That's why the gospel is an invitation. So we see that. But there's a little bit more going on here. Okay, 1 Timothy 5, we're going to put that up there. Okay, this is what happens. The Levites, the priests, elders who direct the affairs of the church well are worthy of double honor. Okay, pause. This word honor, in its literal sense, means payment. Okay, that's how it's used all throughout the Gospels. Okay, it's not a metaphor. It's actual payment. They're worth double honor. So I told the elders, pay me double what I'm getting and you'll make me happy. They haven't done that yet. They usually wad up paper and throw it at me when I say that. No, okay, double honor, especially those who work at preaching and teaching. Those are the pastors who are elders up here. And you guys are very generous with us. Thank you for that. And then he gives two examples. Scripture says, do not muzzle an ox while it's treading out the grain, and a worker deserves their wages. So it's very legitimate, as Paul argues in the Corinthian epistles, to get paid for what I do. You know why? Because he says to the Levites, the tithe goes to them so they don't have to worry about the money. And I feel very blessed that I don't have to have another job. In every country I go to, the pastors don't get paid at all. And I'm very thank you for that. I get to devote my whole time to the church, to you, the flock, whom I love. And so this starts back in this Numbers 18, right here. It starts, ease the burden on the Levites because they carry a heavier responsibility. What's my responsibility? Let not many of you become teachers, knowing you will incur a stricter judgment. Hebrews 13, okay? Love your leaders. Submit to them because they give an accounting for your souls. Those scare me. I know that I'll answer to God for the way I've loved you for 12 years. I know that. And so the answer to that is you bless me. Thank you for doing that. That's 1 Timothy 5. But then it's really interesting. Let's say a word about the tithing part. This is found in 2 Corinthians 9. Remember this. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Okay, this is an agricultural metaphor. I never was a farmer, but it makes sense. You put a little bit of seed in the ground, you get a little crop. You put a whole lot of seed in the ground, you get a big crop. Boy, we're getting close to prosperity gospel, aren't we? You get more back. You get a big crop if you give a lot. Okay, it's called generosity. This is one of those key character qualities that move us toward Christ's likeness because he was generous and gave everything. Why did he save you? Ever wonder that? Ephesians. Okay? He has seated us with him, raised us up so that he can share the riches of his own riches with us for eternity. That's why. Isn't that what a parent loves to do with their children, is bless them? That's why God saved us. So he can bless us for eternity. But it goes on there. It doesn't stop there. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. So decide what you're going to give and give it. Just do it in a way that you're happy. Okay? You're grateful for the way that your money's being spent with what we're doing. And God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound or multiply in every good work. And look at the example he gives right out of Psalms. They have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. Their righteousness endures forever. We're using the money to care for the poor. Every single prophet got on Israel for that because they stopped. They were greedy. We don't want to be greedy people. We don't want to be a greedy church. I love being in America because I can make more money here than in almost anywhere else, and I get to go give it to people and help out. I get to be generous. Help poor people. He goes on. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and multiply your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. Yeah, you see, you give and you get more back. You cannot outgive the Lord. It's impossible. I've tried it several times. You cannot outgive it. Okay? Boy, you will be enriched in every way. You're going to get rich. Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is where prosperity gospel stops. Listen to what comes next. So that you can be generous on every occasion. And through your generosity, it'll result in thanksgiving to God. You don't give to get rich. You give so you can give more. That's the principle. That's the core principle, okay? And honestly, he says this at the end of the Old Testament in Malachi chapter 3. He's accusing the nation, will a mere mortal rob God? Yet you rob me. But you ask, how are we robbing you? In tithes and offerings. You're under a curse, your whole nation, because you're robbing me. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord. It's the only time we're told to test God. Test me and see. See if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will be not enough room to store it. That's generosity. And that's what it says right here in 2 Corinthians, right? In 2 Corinthians, you will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. Why do we give? So we can give more. The church has been in the black as far back as we can look. Thank you. That's on you. That's not me. I just have the privilege and the responsibility to teach you. That's my job. But you sure bless me. And you sure bless our staff. Because of you, every year, the elders give us a bonus as a staff. And our staff are deeply grateful to you. Because of you, we can live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. We couldn't afford to live here without you. None of us could. I'd have to have a very different job to live up here. That's called generosity. And this boring chapter lays all those ground rules. Take care of the Levites who are the priests. Okay? You take care of us who are pastors, but you're also priests yourself. So now we should take care of you. We bless each other. So the first tithe goes to help us. The second tithe goes for us to have a church filled with joy. And the third tithe goes to outside the church, to those who are marginalized, disenfranchised. So I often say to you, when we take the offering, thank you for being generous. I don't really know if you're generous or not. It looks at it from my side, but I'm not you. You could be making $100 million a year and give $5. Well, that's between you and God. Okay? You could be making $10 a year and give 20. Now you're really sacrificial. Okay? That's between you and God. Just double your giving and we'll call it even. Okay? No, I'm kidding. I'm going to ask the ushers to take the offering. And when I say to you, thanks for being generous, I mean it. For those of you that have not tested the Lord, try it. See what happens. The worst that happens is you go bankrupt. No, that's not the worst. That'll never happen. I've tried it many times. So thanks, ushers, for taking the offering.